Hey everybody, I'm Nicole.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah, and together we're the co-founders of Whale Tales, a living library of cetacean stories.
Happy almost end of Orca Action Month, everybody! Today, we've got a very extra special fun episode for you.
So sit back and enjoy as we dive right in.
It has been an action-y and orca-packed Orca Action Month.
Hooray!
Did everybody have fun?
Yes, so much fun.
Yay, June!
Hooray! Today we have an episode I've been super excited about since I came up with it. I literally, when I came up with it, lay in bed giggling to myself. So what happened is we wanted to get stories similar to the episodes we've been doing about unique orca ecotypes. So I reached out to everybody we knew, and everybody we knew sent a story in, which has never happened before. So
Yay! Good job, team!
Yay, everybody! So our episode is Oops, All Stories!
That's right. Today we are bringing you an episode full of whale tales featuring unique orca ecotypes from some of our amazing storytellers from around the world, and it's bonkers. I'm so excited.
I know. Me too.
It's the best! This might be our best ever episode.
I know. I've been so excited about it for so many months, and I've got to listen to all the stories, and they're so amazing. So first off, we have Judith, who we've had on the podcast before, who talked a great length about Icelandic orcas. That was a great episode. And this time she'll be telling a story about when she's been in Antarctica seeing type B smalls, and a different Antarctica story when she saw type A killer whales as well.
Oh my gosh.
My name is Judith Scott, and you may have heard me on one of the Whale Tales podcasts chatting about Icelandic orcas. I've worked in Iceland and do work in Iceland quite a lot with the killer whales, orcas, and also I've worked quite a bit in Norway with the killer whales and also I've worked in other places, South Africa and Norway, and so I have whale tales from all over the place. But today I wanted to just share with you a couple of the encounters I've been lucky enough to experience in Antarctica with the orcas there. The last 2 seasons I have been working for Viking Expedition down in Antarctica, and although whales are not something that we see all the time when we're in Antarctica, it is not the primary focus of many trips. We of course do encounter them down there. Most of the time it is humpbacks that we see. The humpbacks are really incredible. There are so many of them now in many of the different straits and areas that you travel in Antarctica, and we sometimes see minke whales too, but of course there are many orcas down there, and if you are lucky we do sometimes have orca encounters. The main place that you would see the orcas usually in Antarctica is called the Gerlache Strait, and this is a strait that separates the many islands from the main part of the peninsula on the west side, which is where most of the ships go when visiting the Antarctic Peninsula. And often in the evening, ships will slowly go up and down Gerlache Strait in between landings, the different places that we are allowed to take people ashore to go and see the historic sites or the penguins. And so often in the evening, we slowly go up and down Gerlache, and it does have to be slow because IATO, which is the International Association for Tourism in Antarctica, has declared that there is a 10-knot speed limit in Gerlache Strait, and that is because there are often so many whales in there. So the main species of orca that we see in Gerlache, if you are lucky, is the type B small. There are 5 different ecotypes of orcas off Antarctica, and the type B small is sometimes known as the Gerlache orcas because they are so regularly seen in Gerlache. So at night when we are going up and down, if I have enough energy and the weather is nice, I will often go outside in Gerlache Strait and look for the orcas. And I have seen them quite a lot of times there, but not many times have there been opportunities for us to actually stop and watch them because if they're going in the wrong direction or they're traveling too fast and things like that, we can't always see them. But during this last season, the 22-23 Antarctic season, we had 2 wonderful encounters in the Gerlache Strait with the type B Gerlache orcas, and one in particular was incredibly memorable. We actually had a cruise spa night that night, so I was in the spa rather enjoying a relaxation after a long day. We tend to work really long hours in Antarctica on the ships, and then all of a sudden there was a message on the tannoy to say that there were orcas seen. And we don't talk much on our ship. We don't use the tannoy system very often. We try to make it a quiet ship so that people can appreciate this incredible scenery and this amazing place that they are lucky enough to visit. So I quickly jumped out of the swimming pool and ran to my cabin and quickly got changed into, of course, lots and lots of clothes in order to go outside. And I'm really glad that I did, because we did decide to follow the orcas for a short time, and it was the most stunningly beautiful evening with no wind and beautiful light. And one of the juvenile orcas made a really close approach to the ship and went right underneath the bow. And I think many of my photos taken on that evening are on one of my stories on Whale Tales, because really this was my greatest encounter with orcas down in Antarctica. And I have seen the type B smalls, as I said, a few other times there, but this encounter was truly spectacular, looking right down at the orca that came past us, and you can really clearly see the huge eye patch. They look so different to most other orcas in the world. These guys are really distinctive. Their bodies are much more grey than most other orcas. They also have this kind of greyish line, kind of chevron line across the body, with these 2 distinctive colours on the black part of the body, and they're much more greyish. They're not pure black. This huge eye patch. And then also you can also see the yellow colour on the orca. Many of the orcas in Antarctica are really quite yellow compared to other orcas that you see around the world. And this is the diatoms that grow on their body. So this is a type of algae that will grow on the body of the whales down there in that cold water. And we do quite often see the orcas really quite yellow. So we found out, I think, a few years ago that it's believed the orca families that get covered in these diatoms down there will make occasional migrations north up to the coast around Brazil and other parts of South America. And it's believed that they only do that just to clean their bodies. When they get to the warmer water, the diatoms tend to die off, and then they could go back down to Antarctica nice and clean and much more black and white again before the diatoms will grow back on their body. And then the one other super memorable experience for me with orcas down in Antarctica was coming around the top of the peninsula from the eastern side of the peninsula, where we don't go very often. Is usually chock-a-block with ice there. The ships can't go very far around that side of the peninsula because of the huge ice sheet there that puts out massive tabular icebergs. But we were around the corner there just visiting an area, and on our way back in the evening again, there was a shout out that somebody had spotted black fins, and we didn't have the longest encounter with them, but we did get to see some type A orcas. These guys look so much more like the orcas that we imagine. They're much harder to distinguish from, killer whales and orcas that you would see in Iceland and Norway. They're pure black and white. They don't look really anything like the type B Gerlache orcas, and they're also much bigger. They're one of the largest ecotypes of orcas in the world, the type A Antarctic orcas. And it's thought that these guys predominantly feed on mammals. They are known to hunt minke whales and also elephant seals, and I think it's thought possibly humpback calves as well. And we didn't see them for very long. They were just cruising along. But it was really, really amazing to see a different ecotype of Antarctic killer whale, because I had only seen the type B small Gerlache orcas before. And those ones, just to say, are predominantly, we think, feeding on penguins in the Gerlache Strait. I've never seen them chasing penguins yet, but it's thought that they may also be feeding on fish there as well, because it's known that they dive quite deep. And the penguins generally are not that deep. So it's thought that they're feeding on both penguins and maybe fish in the Gerlache Strait. So that's my 2 stories about my lucky encounters with Antarctic killer whales. And I hope that there will be more to come this next Antarctic season. Thank you very much.
Judith, you're the best.
I know.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Judith.
for sharing
Also,
your amazing
jealous.
storytelling.
Can I come visit?
Yeah.
Next up, we have a story from Patrick, who's also a regular storyteller of ours and who has sent us a bunch of stories and been on the podcast telling us a story today about California orcas in one of my favorite places in the whole wide world, Monterey Bay.
So the first time I had ever seen killer whales was a truly special encounter, because not only was it the first time I'd ever seen killer whales, it was an encounter with so many of them, and a few pods were giving some really close looks as they passed by the boat. This was on April 21st of 2018. I went out of Monterey Bay with a couple of friends, and when we got on the boat, the captain, Nancy Black, had already said she had reports of killer whales in the area, so I was already giddy with excitement. And as we were nearing the area where the killer whale pods had been seen, I could already see this tall, dark dorsal fin, and I was just ready to jump up and down. And we got to spend so many hours with these killer whales because they pretty much just hung out in the area. A couple of pods had made a kill, probably late the night before or early in the morning, so there was a gray whale carcass kind of in the area, and a lot of the killer whales were kind of coming in and out, feeding on the carcass. Saw quite a few birds too, including a couple of northern fulmars and many black-footed albatrosses. Some of the albatrosses were making an attempt to feed on the blubber that made its way to the surface, but the killer whales would then steal the blubber away from them. And as I mentioned before, there were several pods that we had seen that day, but the one pod that I greatly remember, and a lot of people do as well, because they're known as the friendly pod, the California 51s, including Star, her sons Orion, Bumper, and Comet. Aurora was likely in the area, but with her own pod. But I remember Bumper being very easy to recognize because of, as a male, that tall dorsal fin, but also one that kind of bends over to the side with a little notch, followed by his brother Orion, who had the really tall, straight dorsal fin. And it was really cool to see them because they often made several passes, often underneath the boat, very nearby, and it was very cool to get a family portrait of all of them kind of popping up at several times. And it was truly an amazing encounter because, again, we got to spend many hours with them because they would just hang out in the area, feeding, but also kind of doing some playful behavior, a couple of tail slaps, and little mini breaches. But at one point, I remember the fog had picked up, and we started getting some humpback whales in the area, and the humpbacks were chasing the killer whales away from the great carcass. This was a sort of behavior that some people believe might be altruistic or for some other reason, but the humpback whales were trying to drive away the orcas from the kill that they had already had. And I had seen humpback whales before, and I've seen them spout at the surface, that as they take their breath, but there was like this loud trumpet sound that would trumpet-like sound that was accompanying these encounters, because it almost, for not to anthropomorphize them, it seemed like the humpback whales were sounding angry or displaying this sort of aggressive behavior, as it was to ward off these killer whales from their carcass. So the humpback whales would make several attempts to push away the killer whales, but after some time, the humpback whales left, but the killer whale stayed in the area. So, again, it was really cool to see the California 51s, a pod I had heard about before, and funny enough, or luckily enough, 4 years later, on the same day, so April 21st, but of 2022, the California 51s were the pod I saw in Monterey Bay again, this time with a new addition to the family, Nebula, who was a calf that was born in 2020. So Nebula was a young calf, and it was really great to, again, get the family portraits of these amazing orcas. So, again, truly an amazing experience with one of my favorite cetaceans and animals of all time.
Ugh.
I love that story, especially because it spans over a couple of years and you get to see families grow.
Oh, so cute. Our next story comes from Elizabeth, who is a PhD student at Dalhousie University, and they're studying pilot whales in eastern Canada, but their story is about orcas off the Galapagos Islands. Sorry for all the squealing.
Hello everyone, I'm Elizabeth Swanborn, a PhD student at Dalhousie University. I study decision-making in longfin pilot whales off of eastern Canada. I've been on the Whale Tales podcast once before, talking about northern bottlenose whales on the Scotian Shelf. But today I'm here to share one of my encounters with orcas in tropical waters as part of Orca Month. My story starts in February of 2014. My lab mates and I were ready to head out on a 2-week research survey for sperm whales off the Galapagos Islands, aboard the Whitehead Labs 40-foot sailboat called Balena. Leaving from Puerto Ayora on the main island of Santa Cruz, we made our way to deeper waters where the sperm whales are often found. When I say deep, I mean deep, as in 3 kilometers or 3,000 meters deep. It was the middle of the hot season off the Galapagos Islands. The seas were calm, there was not a breeze to be felt, and humidity was through the roof. I always joke that we had 2 options during the Galapagos surveys, and that was to burn on deck or sweat buckets below. I'm not a lover of the heat, as you might realize by now. Why study sperm whales off the Galapagos Islands, you might ask? Well, this area was known historically as a rich whaling ground for the species. We have learned a lot over the decades of research on sperm whale culture by studying the different vocal clans who use these waters. We slowly started heading west for our search. Day turned to night, and we tucked into our bunks for the evening. Every 2 hours, we would switch out the person on watch, as it is important to have someone making sure that all is well on the boat and monitoring the hydrophone in case we hear sperm whales. Sometime in the middle of the night, we began to hear the telltale clicks of our focal species. The steady, beating echolocation, that's what we use to track them acoustically. Sperm whales on our first night? Could we really be this lucky? And so the tracking began. Then, as suddenly as we started hearing them, the clicks disappeared. Silence. But out of that silence came a new sound. Calls that certainly weren't sperm whales. Perhaps they were made by one of the blackfish species, the most common in that area being the short-fin pilot whales. As the night grew long, those calls seemed to follow our westward path. Dawn rose. Brilliant calm water stretched out before us. No sign of the sperm whales that we had heard last night. I remember vividly sitting in the cockpit as my lab mate went down to check on the hydrophone, which we listened to every half hour when searching for whales. He remarked that the calls seemed to have gotten a lot closer. Did I see anything? I looked ahead and then to the sides. Nothing. The final search area, of course, was behind us to the stern, and I looked out towards where the hydrophone was streaming, behind our vessel. Then suddenly, a sleek body arose from the waters, coming towards us about 150 meters away. I rubbed my eyes. Could I have seen a white eye patch? No, that would be unlikely. Not impossible, but I didn't want to be the one crying wolf if I had seen something that wasn't there. I stared into the blue. The cetacean surfaced again, and I knew with confidence that we were looking at orcas. A group of 5 of them, including an older calf, cut up to the vessel and spent the next hour or so swimming around us as we continued to the west. They did not spend much time close to the sailboat, as you sometimes see with other tropical orca encounters, but rather lingered around the periphery. Their saddle patches were faint, dorsal fins relatively unmarked, and with pelagic barnacles attached to the trailing edge. To this day, I don't know which individuals we saw. Little research has been done with the orcas off the Galapagos, though there are some scientists who are working hard to build catalogs and understand them better. Are they part of the Eastern Tropical Pacific subgroup? Are there different and undocumented ecotypes of orcas found off the Galapagos? Do they simply pass through, or are there groups who call this archipelago home? This was my first time encountering tropical orcas, but it was certainly not my last. Little did I know that 5 short years later I would be privileged to encounter and document Caribbean orcas off the coast of St. Vincent during a sperm whale survey along the Lesser Antilles. But that's a story for another day. While my research focuses on a close relative of an orca, the long-fin pilot whale, orcas will always hold a special place in my heart. They were, after all, the species that first sparked my interest in cetacean research as a child.
Oh,
Amazing.
just amazing stories.
I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous.
Amazing stories. Well, you want to be jealous. Next up, we have a story from Vanessa, who's a psychologist specializing in social emotional intelligence, which is why she's interested in orcas. She's a marine educator, naturalist, speaker, and orca advocate, and her story is about some certain orcas in Argentina. Please be aware that this is a very graphic story.
You can skip to about 30 minutes and 20 seconds if you want to skip the graphic story.
About my experience watching orcas hunting sea lions in Argentina. So it's always been a dream for me to see these orcas with this stranding hunting technique. Particularly because I'm half Argentinian, half Mexican, and for me it was like, how come I've never seen the Argentinian orcas, if we can call them that way? So yeah, I finally was able to go this April. I was there March, April, and even though it's something very, very spectacular to see, I don't think it's for everyone. And what I mean by that is nature is unpredictable, and we all know that, right? But this is about just being hours, days and days, and many, many hours sitting on the beach, waiting and waiting and waiting and doing nothing. Because one of the ideas, well, not ideas, one of the things you have to do when you are on that beach is you cannot move a lot because there are lots of sea lion pups. And if they get scared, if you scare them and they get into the water and the orcas are around, and if they hunt them, they sort of like, people in the area sort of tell you that you are like the person, the responsible, sorry, I forgot the word, the responsible for that puppy being killed by an orca or being hunted by an orca. So you have to be very careful, not move a lot. If you want to go to the bathroom, no, you have to kind of like go in a very slow like movement, not to scare the pup. So anyways, that plus the Patagonian wind, which is super, super strong, that plus the cold weather, no, from there, or sometimes the super hot weather because it changes a lot. So yeah, it's like you arrive there and you are probably from like 7 a.m., no, before the sunrise, until sometimes 4 or 5 p.m. And sometimes nothing happens. But when it happens, no, and it happened to me and I was super lucky. I know I was super, super lucky to witness this because I know there's many people who have traveled from all around the world to see this, and they have gone for several years and haven't watched it. And yeah, I was able to watch this. So it was one morning, it was early in the morning, and we arrived at, as usual, at 7 a.m. to the beach, and probably it was not more than an hour and a half that we were waiting there that day. And yeah, the orcas, 2 siblings, Pau and Sheke, I can write that down for you. Pau is a male, Sheke is a female. They were patrolling the area. And then the pups, it was kind of high tide. And the pups, they were getting into the water. At this point, the pups kind of know already about the orca, so they're a little bit aware, a little bit more aware. So what they do before they get into the water, they put their head inside the water just to see if there's anything like close to shore, so but this time they were not really getting into the water. They were all hanging out like some adults, lots of pups there. And then all of a sudden you could see Sheke, but it happens so fast. It's just a few seconds where all this happens. Pau, the male, the brother, starts patrolling the area with his huge dorsal fin, which actually, yeah, he's so big that he kind of alerts some of the sea lions that he's around. And then he moves away, slowly towards to the right side. So this all happened to the left side of where I was sitting on the beach. And then Sheke, all of a sudden, she arrives super fast, and does this stranding, grabs a pop, and then she turned to the right side because that's what they do. No, usually they grab them and turn to one side. So I couldn't really see when she turned to the one side. But then she started like moving her body to go back into the ocean, no, and tail slapping a lot against the sand. Then she went into the ocean with the pup, and then she kind of threw it to her brother, to Pau, and then he gave it back to her. And then that was sad to watch. I know it's nature, but it's hard to watch. Then she grabbed the pup and threw it a little bit, not so high, but just a little bit, and you could still see the pup was still alive, moving. And then yeah, they didn't leave. They kind of, you could tell they were sharing the pup, when they made the kill. They were sharing the pup. And then they stayed for a long time still patrolling the area. And then the rest of the family arrived. And then they made several other attempts to hunt. But yeah, there was no more capture that day that I saw. But what was, as I said, I know it's nature. But even though it's nature, you still have empathy, right, for animals. So what was heartbreaking is that you could see like the moms, like the females, the sea lions, they are calling the pups, their pups. And yeah, that's what you get to see every morning, the moms calling the pups, and the pups replying, and then they find each other. But then you could see this day like one mom calling and calling and calling a pup and having no reply, and coming close to us looking for the pup. And I cannot assure that was the mom of the pup that Sheke took, but probably she was, and that just breaks your heart, and it's something hard to watch, but at the same time it's something so amazing to watch. It's like nature at its biggest, more powerful expression, like from the ocean. So I don't know, it was just amazing. And it took me a while to process what I saw, because it's been a dream, and when your dreams come true, in my case at least, it takes me a while to process them, and I keep daydreaming about the situation, for several days, and sometimes it takes me weeks. And actually, yeah, like that picture, that I took of Sheke hunting the pup, I made it my screen saver in my computer, and every time I see it, I can tell I have this huge smile in my head. And like right now, I'm just smiling just recording this. So yeah, that was basically my super 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 amazing experience, witnessing one of the most powerful moments from an orca. Oh, sorry, one more thing. It's just that I got really excited telling the story again. Just wanted to say that watching, like these huge, beautiful orcas that you get to see, like getting their body all outside, the water, and putting themselves in risk, because it's a very vulnerable position. It's also very risky technique, It's very, very impressive, but also like through your mind it comes like, why are you doing this? Like, you have plenty of other food in the ocean, and because they do it, other marine mammals and other stuff. So it also makes you wonder, no, why would they do that? And when you see them practicing, also that's another whole story. But I also got to see them practicing, no, and how they teach the young ones, and how even when they're practicing, the young ones get stressed and they start tail slapping so hard, and like four members of the family are around them, and then right away they go and help that member of the family to go back to the ocean. Like that whole technique, it's insane. No, it's insane. And the big question is why? Why would they do it? Is it that baby sea lions, they are so good, so delicious, no, that's why they do it? Or and I just want to add that I was super grateful because I know I was super lucky. And I'm very, yeah, so I said I'm very grateful with the ocean for giving me this amazing sighting.
Vanessa also gave us some information on these individuals. Apologies for any pronunciation, but Shikei, which means jewel in the native Argentinian language, is 15 years old, and her older brother Pau is 18 years old.
Oh, so cool. Just so, one day.
Yeah. I can't, I don't even know what I'd do with myself if
I
I got
know.
to see that.
I
So
know.
cool.
That was so good. That's a wrap on Orca Action Month 2023. Thank you for joining us for our second year of doing extra episodes. We always have fun doing these mini episodes for you, sharing and learning new Orca knowledge. Before we go, we want to take a quick moment to tell you about one of the ways you can support our podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales.
You can join us by becoming a patron at patreon.com/whaletales. You can join us for $1 a month at the porpoise level, $5 a month at the dolphin level, or $10 a month at the whale level. And every level comes with a variety of perks. For example, this month, possibly already there by the time you get this podcast, there is a bonus extra story that's available for all patrons, and we're very excited.
Yeah.
Oops, even more stories.
More stories.
We ran out of room.
And if you can't support us financially, we completely understand. Thank you for being here. Thank you for celebrating Orca Action Month with us. Thank you for listening to all of our little mini episodes this month. And thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. We love hearing from you. It really is the best part of our days when we get feedback or comments or tweets or any other kind of way that you want to communicate with us. We squee with delight, me at maybe a higher decibel than Sarah. And it really just means so much to us. So please visit our website, whale-tales.org, where you can find links to all of our social media handles so that you can drop us a line and let us know how you're feeling about what we do here at Whale Tales.
While you're on our website, you can also find all the ways that you can subscribe to the podcast and read over 1,200 whale, dolphin, and porpoise stories. Like 500 of them are about killer whales, and I think all the stories that you heard on the podcast today will also be there, because Lindsay's amazing.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, that's whale-tales.org. Tales like the stories, not tales like the animal.
And if you've seen a cetacean in the wild, it doesn't have to be something from like remote regions of Antarctica. Any cetacean, we would love to add your story to our library. Click on the share link on our website. You can contact us on social media at whaletales_org on Instagram, or you can email us a voice memo and tell us all about your incredible cetacean encounter.
Finally, we want to acknowledge that we recorded today's episode on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, as well as the homelands of the Tsawwassen First Nation.
We will be back next month with our regular format. So we thank you for joining us for all of these extra mini episodes this month. But this is a little bit more work than we usually have capacity for.
Yep.
So we'll be back with just one episode next month, but it is going to be a great one. So in the meantime, thank you for listening, for supporting us, and we hope you have a whaley great day.